Have you ever caught yourself thinking something along the lines of, I'm not enough. I always mess this up. Or maybe it's, I have to prove myself. Or I'll never get ahead. Maybe you've tried replacing those thoughts with positive affirmations. Maybe you've read the books, listened to the podcasts, repeated new thoughts over and over again. And yet, the old ones just keep coming back. Why? It's not because you're failing. It's because you've been trying to change the leaves without ever looking at the roots. Today, I want to take you deeper into the invisible architecture that shapes every thought, every emotion, every choice, and ultimately every experience that you create. Because your thoughts do matter, but they aren't the whole story. And when you begin understanding what they're actually reporting, everything changes. Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project. I'm your host, Dawn Elgin. If you've ever looked around at your life that appears successful on the outside, but feels disconnected on the inside, you are in the right place. If you've ever wondered why you keep repeating the same patterns, carrying the same emotional weight, or chasing goals that never quite bring you the peace you hope they would, you are in the right place. This podcast is about remembering who you were before the world told you who you needed to be. Together, we'll explore the intersection of neuroscience, psychology, ancient wisdom, quantum science, and practical spiritualism to understand how awareness shapes our field and how our field shapes our lives, and why lasting change begins from the inside out. We'll talk about leadership, relationships, health, purpose, emotional well-being, and conscious creation, not as separate parts of life, but as reflections of one thing: our level of alignment. Because most people don't need another strategy. They need a new relationship with themselves. So whether you're leading a business, a family, a team, or simply trying to lead yourself with greater intention, welcome. Take a breath, become the witness, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to the Aligned Human Project. This month, we're exploring something I believe changes everything: the field. Not the field out there, the field within you. The invisible environment from which your life is continually being created. Last month, we spent time turning on the light. We stepped into the room. We became aware of what we've been carrying. Now I want to ask a different question. What is creating the life you're experiencing? Many people answer that question by saying, my thoughts. And while I agree that our thoughts are incredibly important and they are a part of this, I know they're not the beginning of the story. They are somewhere in the middle. They're telling us something. They are reporting something. They're inviting us to become curious about something much deeper. Today, I'd like to explore what that is. Because when we understand where thoughts come from, we stop fighting them and we begin listening to them. One of the things I love about coaching is that people rarely come to me saying, Dawn, I'd really like to explore the meaning I assign to an event when I was 8 years old. They say something more like, I keep thinking I'm not enough, or I keep getting angry, or I have a habit of people pleasing, or maybe it's procrastinating. Maybe they ask, I keep attracting the same kind of relationships. Why? See, they're describing the fruit, not the roots. And honestly, that makes perfect sense because thoughts are visible. Behavior is visible. Emotions are noticeable. Beliefs, not so much. Meaning, even less. Most of us don't walk around thinking about the meaning we assigned to life decades ago. We simply live from it. That's why I believe awareness is such a gift. It slows us down long enough to ask, where did this thought come from? Not to blame the past, not to stay stuck in the past, but to understand the architecture of the present. Because every thought has a history. Every reaction has a history. Every pattern has a history. And when we become curious about that history, choice becomes possible. Let's look at this through the lens of neuroscience. Your brain is constantly making predictions, not because it's trying to limit you, because prediction is efficient. If you've repeatedly experienced criticism, your brain begins anticipating criticism. If you've repeatedly experienced rejection, your brain becomes exquisitely sensitive to the signs of rejection. Not because those things are always happening, because your brain is trying to keep you safe. It creates mental shortcuts based on previous meaning. That meaning becomes belief, and beliefs begin shaping our attention. Attention influences the thoughts that naturally arise, and those thoughts create emotional responses. Those emotional responses change your physiology, and your physiology influences the nervous system. And together, they create what I call your field. This is the law of coherence. Your field isn't created by one thought. It's created by the relationship between your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, body, nervous system, attention, and ultimately consciousness from which you're expressing life. When those parts are working together, we experience coherence. When they're pulling in different directions, we experience internal conflict. That's why positive thinking alone often isn't enough, because you can't think your way into coherence while your nervous system is still living from the old story. The invitation isn't to think harder. The invitation is to become curious enough to discover the beliefs that are quietly organizing your field all along. Let's go back into the room we've been talking about over the last couple weeks. And if you're just jumping on here, I'm going to give it to you real quick. We're all born with a room. In this room, we have stuff, lots of stuff. We're a bit of hoarders. And so in this room, when we were born, it came pre-furnished. It came with some of the things that your parents passed down to you that they got from their parents. It came with some things they thought you needed to survive in this world. And then as you grew, you added more to it. So now, not only do you have some of these things, but you also create meaning around these things. And then you add more stuff into the room all the time, and the room fills up. And this room, we've never really paid a lot of attention to. We pay enough attention to it to know those things are in the room. Some of them, not all of them. We don't have enough awareness to know where it is or that it shouldn't even be in there. We just have enough awareness to know that it's there altogether. And we sum this room up as it's just the way I am. And this is the room that cultivates your personality. Now, this room was never supposed to be furnished. This room was designed to be empty, to be pure potential. It was designed to house the seed of your soul. And it gets harder and harder to see the potential or be aware of the potential when there's so much shit and stuff and things covering it up, blocking it, obscuring your path, your way to that awareness, back to the soul, back to yourself. So this is the room that we're going to be talking about. Now, as we're going into this room and we become aware, awareness is the light in the room. Awareness is pure information. And so when you first begin to awaken, as they say, the idea is something causes you to become aware of the switch and you flick on. Maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a book, maybe it is a spiritual journey, maybe it's a coach, a counselor, a friend, it could be all sorts of things. Something comes along and you become aware of this room. You flick on the light and you look at it from the door and you go, holy shit, look at all of this junk. It is filled with drama and trauma. And some of it, you might even have a good meaning that goes with it, such as the trophy you won when you were 11, when you were running really fast. And you don't realize that that trophy, although the memory was good, the reason the memory was good, quote unquote, is because your parents were proud of you. Your teacher was proud of you. People thought you were super fast. It became part of your identity. The trophy is part of your identity. And that trophy taught you, or earning that trophy taught you how to continuously try to strive and prove and receive a sense of safety, security, belonging, and love from the world around you. So although the trophy itself isn't bad, it's actually linked to something that's keeping you stuck. So our job, the journey of your entire life, is to not just become aware, but to know who you are and embody pure potential, which means to get there, we need to empty the room. And that is our job. And most of us are like, I don't want to know what's in there. That's why they don't want to meditate. People are like, it's too much work. It's too hard. And they will make excuses, justifications and excuses, which are just well thought out lies as to why they should stay the way they are. But once you know about that room, you can never fully go back. And your job is to keep opening up that room of awareness, that room of your pure potential, and keep the light on and keep clearing it out one item at a time. That's what we're talking about. All right. So now I want you to imagine you've started cleaning. You've let go of some of the obvious things, a broken chair, an old box, a few dusty trophies, and the room is starting to feel a little lighter. It's got a little more space. You can start walking through now. And then one day you notice something tucked into the corner, a tall metal filing cabinet. And you open the top drawer, and every file is a person. Every file is a memory. Every file is labeled with a story. The teacher who embarrassed me. The friend who betrayed me. The boss who overlooked me. The partner who lied. The parent who couldn't love me the way I needed. Some of those files are decades old. Yet, you've been carrying that filing cabinet all the way up the mountain of self-realization. No wonder you're exhausted. Every single grudge, every single resentment, every unresolved belief, every story you've continued to replay adds weight to the climb. The question isn't whether you were hurt. The question is, do you still need to carry the filing cabinet? So the cabinet represents stored meaning, not just the memories themselves. And each file continues to influence the field until it's examined. Awareness opens the drawer without any judgment, and alignment allows us to choose files that no longer need to be carried. Every file released makes your climb just a little bit lighter. So healing isn't about pretending the files were never existed in the first place. It's about realizing you were never meant to carry that cabinet forever. You were ever actually meant to create the cabinet at all. So thoughts don't appear out of nowhere. They emerge from a field. That's why trying to change a thought without understanding the field that produced it is like trying to change the reflection in a mirror without changing what's standing in front of it. The reflection isn't the cause. It is the result, cause and effect. The same is true of our thoughts. They're constantly reporting on the condition of the field they're living from. This is why the law of coherence sits at the heart of field and form. Everything is communicating with everything else. Your beliefs influence your thoughts. Your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions influence your physiology. Your physiology is part of the nervous system that is shaping what you notice. What you notice reinforces the beliefs, and the loop continues until awareness enters. Flick on the light. Awareness doesn't break the loop. Awareness reveals the loop. Alignment changes the loop. That distinction really matters here. Because if awareness alone changed our lives, every insightful book would transform us permanently. Every podcast would change us forever. Every breakthrough would last. However, we know that's not how transformation works. Real transformation happens when awareness changes our next choice, then our next, and our next. One conscious choice begins creating a new pattern. Repeated patterns become a new way of being in this world. You see, the brain is designed to conserve energy. And once a pattern has been repeated enough times, it becomes increasingly automatic. Neural pathways strengthen through repetition. The more often a particular thought, emotion, response, a behavior is used, the more efficient that pathway becomes. That's why familiar reactions happen so quickly. You don't consciously decide to become defensive. You don't consciously decide to people please. You don't consciously decide to withdraw. Your nervous system has rehearsed those responses thousands of times. They are efficient. They are familiar. They become your default. Here's the beautiful news. The same principle that created the old pattern can create the new one. Neuroplasticity tells us that the brain continues changing throughout our entire lives. Every time we consciously interrupt an old pattern and practice a new one, we're strengthening a different neural pathway. This is why rehearsal is so powerful. Elite athletes use it. Musicians use it. Pilots use it. Even surgeons use it. They don't wait until the critical moment to decide how they'll respond. They practice before the moment arrives. The nervous system learns through repetition. That's why before I used to call my mom, I would pause. I already knew the conversations that tended to activate me. So instead of waiting for the trigger, I rehearsed the response. I would literally close my eyes and relax my shoulders, start to slow my breathing down, start coming into my body. Imagine her saying the very same thing that usually hooked me. And then I would mentally rehearse staying present, speaking with kindness, maybe listening without becoming defensive, choosing compassion over reaction. So that by the time the phone rang, my body had already practiced the person I intended to be. It's not pretending, it's preparation. That's alignment in action. We're not trying to fool the brain. We're teaching the entire system, mind, body, emotions, the nervous system, the field, what coherence feels like before our lives ask us to live it. You see, it used to be that when my mom would call, I would react. I would react every single time. And it was more a matter of how quickly would I react as opposed to would I react at all. So I needed to take the time to settle my system, even to the point that sometimes she would call and I wouldn't answer the call. And I would call her back about 5 minutes later. I would say something like, "Hey, Mom, I just saw that I missed your call." And the reason that I would do this, there's no need to trigger her or be insulting or be mean. It has no value. So with full intention, I would make that lie. And I would say, hey, mom, I just missed your call. And maybe I'd say, how are you? What's going on? What's new? Whatever the question was going to be. But between when she called and when I would return the phone call, I would settle myself. That's my job. My job is to be in control of myself, not in control of her, which is what I'd been trying for 40 years. It was for me to be in control of me. So instead, I would pause. I would come into the stillness. I would calm myself down. I'm safe. I'm secure. I would get myself settled and sorted into my environment. And then I would make the call. And if I knew that maybe I'm in a mood, maybe it's going to be harder for me today to pull this off, then I might give myself a quick out, which would also sound like, hey, mom, sorry, I just saw I missed your call. I'm just in the middle of making dinner. So that gives me the out already when I start to feel myself getting defensive or getting activated. So this is what we can do. We can rehearse it. And so as I calm my nervous system, I might respond. Okay, she's going to bring up the news. She's going to bring up, in the end of her life, it was still to the very end, was bringing up COVID, bringing up politics. We have very different outlooks on life. And so I would rehearse my responses to those things. And it took me a while to realize that I didn't need to shut her down about something that was important to her. Obviously, she was stressed about these things. And instead, sometimes I would try to get her to notice how her nervous system was feeling and that sort of thing. And we would work through this. But the beautiful thing was that in the end, for especially that last year of her life, I was able to not react. And when I felt myself starting to become, my voice starting to get a little more tense, I'd be like, hey, mom, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but, dinner's ready, or I've got a meeting that I've got to jump into. I love you. I hope that you have a great day, and we'll talk again in the next little bit. And then I would hang up the phone. And so it was a way for me to get out of that call while still being compassionate with myself and still being kind and compassionate and loving towards her. And so I would rehearse them. I'd rehearse them in my mind. If she called and I was driving home, how am I going to answer this call? How am I going to deal with this? And so sometimes she would have left a message. So I'd have an idea of what I was going to be walking into the call. So how do you want to show up in this? Who do you want to be, Dawn? And that's a question I ask myself over and over again. A question I've been asking my clients since literally I was in training to do coaching. Who do you want to be in this situation? You're going to look back on this day 10 years from now. What response would make you proud? You're going to look back and be like, you know what? I'm really proud of how I handled that. And then go there. That's what we're going to rehearse. So to do this, first thing that we need to do is we need to recognize the old pattern before the event. And then we have to prepare our nervous system instead of waiting to react. We rehearse the aligned version of ourselves in complete and utter presence, so that we can enter the conversation with coherence rather than anticipation of what's going to go bad. And then we just notice the greatest transformation wasn't changing the other person. It was actually changing the field that brought up this relationship. See, life doesn't ask us to become aligned in the middle of the storm. That's almost impossible. Alignment is cultivated before the storm arises. Once we understand that our field can be cultivated, a completely different question begins to emerge. If I can consciously prepare the field, what am I choosing to grow every single day? That's where I'd like to bring everything together. The law of coherence doesn't stop with individuals. Every relationship has a field. Every family has a collective field. Every team has a collective field. Every organization has a collective field. Walk into a workplace where people don't feel psychologically safe. You feel it before anyone speaks. Walk into a home where resentment has been quietly accumulating for years. You feel it before anyone says a word. Walk into a room where people are genuinely trusting of each other, and you can feel that too. The field always speaks first. Words simply give it a language. This is why leadership begins long before strategy, long before communication, and long before decision making. Leadership begins with the field the leader consistently cultivates. People don't simply hear our words, they experience our coherence or our incoherence. That's why I say trust is what it feels like when someone's field and form are in alignment. There's no gap between who they are being and what they are expressing. That's the kind of leader people follow, not because they're perfect, but because they are congruent. This week, I want to invite you into a different relationship with your thoughts. Don't try to control them. Don't argue with them. It won't work. Don't shame yourself for having them. It has zero value. Become their student. Several times each and every day, pause, feel, and align. I invite you to set several alarms for it. And then ask yourself, what thought is here? Just become aware of the thoughts you're having. What belief is this thought reporting? What meaning gave birth to that belief? This is a great practice for brain dumping. Is that meaning still organizing my life, or is it simply familiar? And then finally, what field am I cultivating in this moment? Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now in the present moment. Because this moment is the only place where alignment can ever occur. One conscious breath, one conscious thought, one conscious choice. That's how we create a new field. That's how a new field is cultivated. The greatest shift in my own life happened the day I stopped trying to win the battle against my thoughts. Thoughts are not the enemy. They're the messengers. They bring some wisdom. Some bring old stories. Some carry beliefs that no longer belong. Every one of them is an invitation to become more aware. That's why awareness is never the destination. Awareness is the doorway. Alignment is the walk through it, and we do it intentionally. The field isn't something we occasionally influence. The field is something we are continually cultivating with every single interpretation, every single belief, every thought, every emotional response, every conversation, every single breath. The question has never been, am I creating? You are. You are creating. The real question is, from what field am I creating? That question has the power to change a life. Because once you become aware of the field, you become responsible for tending it. Not perfectly, lovingly, patiently, compassionately. This is the law of radical self-responsibility. Like a master gardener who understands that healthy gardens aren't created in a day, they're cultivated every day. This week, I invite you to begin one simple practice. Carry a small notebook or use the Notes app on your phone. And every time you notice a repeating thought, write it down. And don't edit it. Don't soften it. And for the love of all that's mighty, don't replace it. Just simply observe it. At the end of the day, read through your list and ask, what belief is each of these thoughts reporting? And then you can ask one final question. Is this the field I want to continue cultivating? You may discover that your thoughts have been faithfully pointing toward the very beliefs that are ready to be released. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who's been trying to change the way they think. Maybe what they're really ready to change is the field beneath their thinking. And if you're ready to go deeper, download the 5 Elements of Alignment assessment. It's a practical first step in understanding the patterns that have been shaping your field and how to begin cultivating a new one. I want to leave you with this. Your thoughts matter. Your beliefs matter. Your emotions matter. Your body matters. Your nervous system matters. None of them exist in isolation. They are constantly communicating with one another. They are constantly creating the field from which your life is unfolding. This is the law of coherence. When your thoughts, beliefs, emotions, body, values, and actions move together, life begins to move differently. Not because the world changes, because you change the field from which you met the world. So stop trying to paint brown leaves green. Become curious about the roots. Tend the soil. Trust the seasons. And remember, awareness reveals. Alignment chooses. Coherence organizes. And creation expresses. The witness is the gardener. Attention is the sunlight. Choice is the water. Beliefs are the seeds. The field is the soil. And form is the harvest. So cultivate your field with the same care you would cultivate the most beautiful garden you've ever imagined. Because the harvest you're experiencing tomorrow is being planted by the field you're cultivating today. You are the witness. You shape your field, and your field shapes your life. Until next time. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. My hope is that you leave each episode not with more information, but with greater awareness, because awareness is where every meaningful change begins. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to stop surviving and start living from alignment. If you'd like to continue this work, you can join us inside the Aligned Human Project community. Explore the free 5-element alignment assessment, or learn more about Align Your Life, Aligned Living, and Alignment Operating System at practicalspiritualismco.com. Remember, awareness reveals, alignment chooses, and creation follows. You are the witness. You shape the field, and the field shapes your life. Until next time, keep pausing, keep noticing, and keep choosing. I'll see you in the next episode.